Get ready. You're about to experience the life science effect. The most influential players in biotech, pharma, and medical device, bringing you their insights and inspirational stories. Are you ready to boost your career? Ready to set your medical innovation in motion? You have arrived at the right place. Every week, another industry leader, more insights, more inspiration, and tips you can implement right away to make your mark on the world. Welcome to the show. Today, I'm joined by Coy, who's the president and CEO at CincyTech. I guess, first of all, Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being on. I said CincyTech. A lot of people probably don't know what that is. In a minute, I really want to get into your background and who you are and what drives you in life. But first, maybe just real quick, what is CincyTech?
CincyTech, very quickly, is an innovation district on 60 acres in downtown Indianapolis, adjacent to the IU School of Medicine and Eskenazi Hospital and the IUPUI campus. And we are building a district, a physical place that will become home to startups and established corporations, incubators and accelerators in the life sciences, tech and advanced engineering, advanced energy sectors, who want to be in a place that will be built to attract talent and to link them up with the universities across the state for innovation.
Great. And it is I noticed you're using future tense quite a bit. So what physically is it now and what will it be in the next few years?
Sure. Well, physically today it is 45 acres of warehouse-type buildings. It's literally surrounded on three sides by water, Fall Creek and the White River. The White River Trail goes along it, and so it's really just underutilized warehouse space. Mm-hmm. And we announced at the end of December that we're building our first building. It's an advanced innovation and research building, 120,000 square feet, wet labs and labs on the first three floors for the Indiana Bioscience Research Institute. The IU School of Medicine is putting part of its regenerative medicine program there, and then the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership has a number of industry-related economic development initiatives that will also be locating there. So that will be our first building. It's under construction right now. And over time, the next 10 years, we will have about 2 million square feet of office and lab space, about 750 apartments. We'll have restaurants and, as I mentioned, incubators, accelerators, a health club. At the end of 10 years, we're projecting there'll be about 3,000 people working in this place that today might have about 900 people.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, if I drive through there now, it does look like a lot of empty warehouse space. There's a nice building that the I believe it's IU School of Medicine or IUPUI has there.
Yes.
I've been in that building a couple of times. IBRI, who's been on the show, Reiner Fisher and Dan Robertson have been on the show. And a lot of great events over there. Every time I go there, in fact, I was just talking to you about Michael Coleman, who's on the show from Theratome Bio. I met him there. So that's how that kind of started. So thank you for all the things you're doing. So you have a pretty diverse background in terms of, well, let me say dynamic background. Things that I don't know a whole lot about, I'm interested to learn about, and that is work that I don't know if it's similar to CincyTech or if it has the same drivers, but it's all about helping startups, helping innovation, helping people with ideas turn their ideas into something useful and something. So talk a little bit about your background and how you first got involved in this sort of entrepreneurial startup ecosystem.
Okay, well, I have to take you back to
Let's go back.
In 1981. I'm from Pennsylvania originally. Mm-hmm. I grew up near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Okay. My parents are from Pittsburgh. I have a lot of relatives in Pittsburgh. And when I graduated actually from Notre Dame, and I went back, I took a job with a public-private partnership that had been established by the governor to advise him on state policies that could help Pennsylvania diversify away from industries which were in decline at that time. You're probably too young to remember the collapse of the steel industry in 1981 in Pittsburgh.
I grew up in Northwest Indiana, so we had our own collapse here.
Okay, right. Well, the same deal, Gary. Same kind of deal. So, across Pennsylvania, these old line industries were in deep trouble, and part of it was foreign competition. Part of it was changing markets. Part of it was just practices that were obsolete, the management practices that were obsolete. And the way I got into this business of helping startups is that Pennsylvania at that time decided to leverage its great strengths at its universities, Penn State, Pitt, Carnegie Mellon, University of Pennsylvania, Lehigh, a bunch of them across the state that were on sort of doing cutting edge technology research in both tech, robotics, and life sciences to develop new technologies that could be commercialized through startups or that could be adopted by established companies to help them become more competitive. And as we assessed the state's strengths and weaknesses at that time, I noted the strong universities, but a key ingredient, there were two ingredients that were missing. One was venture capital, and one was management talent that had the skill set necessary to take an idea from scratch and bring it to market and scale it up into something significant. We had a lot of management talent in the state, but a lot of them had been with larger corporations and hadn't really experienced doing startups. So we had to do a lot of the things that Indiana is doing now. We worked with our two state pension funds to create an asset class so that they could make investments in professionally managed venture capital funds. Then we worked with them to create a fund of funds. This was in '83 to begin to invest in local venture capital funds. And then if a venture capital fund wanted investment but was out of state, it had to open office inside the state. And then we set up at Pitt and Carnegie Mellon, Penn State, the University of Pennsylvania and Drexel, and Lehigh. We set up technology centers through a program called the Ben Franklin Partnership. And that's how I ran that program, and that program was all about helping to commercialize technologies out of universities, helping to link established companies with university capabilities, building up the venture capital industry in the state. So that's how I got on the path that I've been on ever since.
So the holy trinity of technology, capital, and talent.
Exactly.
You've been involved in developing all three.
That's right.
How do you get into? What's your background? How did you first get into that space?
Well,
you have a finance background?
No, I have an economics background.
Economics, okay.
Yeah. And I turned down a job with a tech company to go to Phoenix in 1981 because I always had this interest in public policy. So I thought, well, the first job I want to do is in the public policy area.
Okay.
And so I didn't. I was really I majored in labor economics, and so I was interested in the role that technology was playing in changing the world of work and the skills that people needed and how work is organized. So I just started out as a research analyst.
Okay.
And learned more and more about the trends that were underway that were reshaping the economy, and then went from that to actually learning the skills necessary to apply the research that I was doing.
So
on-the-job training.
Your bachelor's was in labor economics or your master's?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And so you went from Pennsylvania, and is it your Notre Dame connection that brought you back to us eventually?
No, actually, well, in some ways, yes, because it was 40 years ago today that I was there.
Oh wow.
But I had been before taking the job at CincyTech. I was the CEO of a seed fund in Cincinnati called CincyTech. And we had about $64 million under management. We only invested in pre-revenue to very low revenue startups in life sciences and tech in Southwest Ohio. And I'd been doing that for 11 years. And I was ready to do something else. I mean, I've always been sort of a startup guy myself. I like to start things, but not necessarily run them long term. Yeah. So I was actually planning on going back to either the Baltimore, Washington area or to the Philadelphia area. Okay. And was looking at opportunities there when I was contacted by a recruiter about CincyTech. And when I came out here for the interview, I was just really taken by the vision, by the strong corporate support for it. Companies like Lilly and Cook and Roche Diagnostics and the universities, the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership, which is the CEOs of the largest corporations in the region, the Lilly Endowment. There had been about $100 million committed to the project at that time, so it seemed to be well resourced. And what really struck me about it is that CincyTech is playing on trends that are underway that I think set it up for success. And it incorporates a lot of the things that I've done throughout my career in one place, one really unique physical place.
Being creative about raising money, I suppose.
Well, raising money, partnerships with universities, helping universities commercialize technology, startups, accelerators, and what's the other trends that are really, I think, exciting for the project are, first of all, the convergence of technology that's underway right now. Most of the great innovation is taking place at the convergence of the life sciences, the biologic sciences, the computer sciences, the engineering sciences, and the physical sciences. It's where those are converging, where the excitement is happening, and CincyTech is going to be a place of convergence of those technologies.
And how does that work? How do you see that convergence working? Is it
Well,
somebody, they're in the same cafeteria, so they overhear each other talking? Is that how it happens? Or
well, I mean, a lot of it is serendipity.
Okay.
I mean, if you go to Kendall Square in Boston, for example, which is next to MIT, you'll find a huge concentration of life science companies there, like Novartis, who are interacting with people like you with chemical engineering degrees, mechanical engineering degrees. So it's part of it is serendipity and just being in the same place. I mean, that's proximity is really important. Part of it can be planned, arranged. So, for example, Cook Regentech is currently located at CincyTech, and they're doing developing medical devices for regenerative medicine, for the delivery of regenerative medicine therapies, cell therapies. And one of the first tenets at CincyTech, in addition to Cook Regentech, is IU's regenerative medicine program. So you begin to try to cluster. We're not just filling up buildings. We're trying to identify companies and industries that will benefit by being close to each other, and I should say the universities as well. So, yeah.
Well, it makes sense. It makes logical sense for sure. And we had John Hannock on the show as well, and he's the head of Purdue Ventures, or on the part of the leadership team of Purdue Ventures.
Okay.
And they're building something called the Discovery Park District.
I'm familiar with it.
Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I've
Okay.
been there. I've seen it. Yeah.
And it's the theory's similar, and I think about the triangle, the technology, the talent, and the capital can kind of all be co-located almost, or at least have a central hub where people can come. And so I think about that in terms of the people who are listening now, who maybe it runs the gamut. There are some at large corporations, and they're working in life sciences at a big company, and maybe they're dreaming of someday being an entrepreneur or working at a startup or something like that, making the connections and networking to do even better work at their current job. We have people from startups listening, wondering how to get the next round of financing or what that even means. And they need technology or talent help. How do you see CincyTech? Like, what should that person be thinking about with CincyTech, and what should they be doing to get involved to help them solve the problems that they have?
Well, I would say that within the next year to year and a half, CincyTech will have opened our first building. We should break ground on our second 120,000 square foot building, and we're repurposing an older building there into an innovation hub that will provide co-working space, corporate suites, corporate offices. Plan on having incubators and accelerators there, and so it'll be a place that will begin to attract the kind of people that you just described. I mean, the word will get out that this is a place where you can go. We'll have venture funds there. We're talking to 3 funds already that that need to have a presence in Indiana, so we're talking to them about being there. So it'll just be a place where if you're starting up a company and you want to connect with the resources, either the kind of resources that I just described or the universities, it'll be a place where you'll just go and call me, call Reiner Fisher. There'll be various ways to connect into the network to begin to get support and ideas and relationships.
And it's fun to see, I completely see that vision, and it's fun to see that you can already do that even without the physical building. So
Right.
16Tech's is almost already that without even having its first official building, just because you're out there and I see you at the events and you're speaking and you're on panels. And I would encourage anybody to do exactly what you just said. Go out, and we'll give website addresses and stuff, but try to get a hold of you or Reiner or anybody at IBRI, because there are events there that you can go to. And I've already gained tons of value. Even, I love doing this show, but my day job is I'm managing projects for a large client. And I've picked up things at some of the events that I've gone to that have helped me in that job. So it's not just always this, it's got to be startup. It's got to be, this cutting edge thing. There's plenty of value people can get for their day jobs even if they love their job at the corporation and don't plan on leaving, right?
That's absolutely. And in fact, one of the reasons why large companies want to have a presence in an innovation district is because large companies are trying to learn from high potential startup companies. They're looking for new technologies, new ideas, new ways of bringing products to market faster, and talent. So large companies, actually the large companies in Indiana or in the Indianapolis area are the ones who are behind 16Tech because they see this as a talent play for them.
Which is huge. I mean, that's their raw material, right?
That's right.
Is the talent. It's not chemicals and things. It's the talent.
It's the talent.
Yep. Okay, so I know that 16Tech is for technology, not just life science.
That's right.
But also manufacturing and other
IT
technology.
and tech and life sciences.
Absolutely. And so I'll ask this question a little differently than I normally do. This is the life science. It's the life science effect. So it's the life science show. But we normally ask, how does what you're doing help patients? But I'll say, how does it help the ultimate end users of this technology, including patients and maybe healthcare providers, but also when you're thinking about the manufacturing and the IT and those kinds of things, how does it help the end user? I get how it helps now. I think I have a good sense of how it helps the startups. I know how it helps the venture capitalists, but me as a consumer, why should I be, or even as a resident of Indianapolis, why should I be excited about any of this? You
might say that 16Tech is like B2B versus B2C. You're familiar with the concept of business to consumer. So a company like Cook Regentech, which is there right now, is developing delivery systems for cell therapies that will help consumers, right? They're there because Cook Medical views Cook Regentech as their corporate accelerator, and they wanted it to be off campus, off of their Cook Medical campus, so that it could act, more like a startup and not be constrained by the rules and regulations that larger companies have. I think Cook Regentech is a good example of the type of corporate functions that will be put at 16Tech. They won't be like large units of a corporation. They'll be smaller units of a corporation, that more like skunkwork innovation groups that are developing products for consumers. Regenerative medicine is just one. If you have visited the Indiana Bioscience Research Institute, so they're working on therapies for diabetes and metabolic diseases and obesity, all of which are ultimately designed to help consumers, patients, citizens,
and not just treat, but cure
some
diseases.
That's right.
So
and
I think people think of technology sometimes, being on the coasts, of course the Amazons and Googles and Ubers of the world, and on the West Coast, and then the Boston Scientifics and the other big medical companies on the East Coast. I think one of the great things the Midwest provides, and 16Tech, I think in particular, will be able to, and other places like Purdue Foundry and so forth, are the bringing those two big bits of technology together. You started to mention convergence. One of the worries, frankly, that people in life sciences have is as the Amazons and Ubers of the world get into healthcare, that they'll miss some of the critical learnings that those of us who have been in life science forever have kind of learned.
Yeah.
Now, we may not know the big tech side and the learning, scaling rapidly and all that necessarily, but we do know the life science side. So I would be excited to see, and so for the ultimate consumer who may be thinking, well, is Amazon going to have all of my medical records? Are they going to administer some sort of treatment to me that's going to hurt me? And my answer would be not if we have enough of these convergence type areas where people from the life sciences can kind of cross-pollinate with people from the technology side.
Right. I agree with that.
I heard somebody said at one of the panel discussions about a year ago now, I think it was, but they said that's one of the big challenges. Oh, I know who it was. It was Vince Wong from Roche. He said Indiana has really come a long way with tech, with IT tech, and we have always been strong in life science, getting even stronger. He said he challenges those two groups to come together to create something even bigger.
Yes, I agree.
So that was a long question. I don't think there is a question. Maybe it's like, maybe I just needed to hear if you agreed with all that.
I agree with all of that.
Rambling.
No, I think it's absolutely right.
So this is your first time living in Indianapolis, though, right? The CincyTech.
That's correct.
How long you've been at CincyTech?
A little over a year and a half.
Just over a year and a half. So Pennsylvania, Ohio.
I was in Delaware. I lived in
for a while.
Wilmington, Delaware, and St. Louis.
So what do you think of Indianapolis so far?
Oh, it's a great town. Yeah, no, it's a great town, and it's a great time to be here. I think, Indianapolis. My first time to Indianapolis was actually in 1979, so 40 years ago, when I came down for the Indy 500 from South Bend.
Oh, right, yeah.
And the downtown has just changed so much since then. There's so much going on: restaurants, housing, apartments, condos. Mm-hmm. It's just a much more vibrant place. Mm-hmm. And in fact, one of the reasons why I think CincyTech will be successful is because Indianapolis itself has become a place that's attracting millennial talent.
Yes.
Who want to live downtown, want walkable neighborhoods, and so it's I'm enjoying it very much.
That's one of the huge things, I think, when you look at some of the future vision, some of the artist renderings of that area that I think about. Mass Ave is really popular.
Yep.
Downtown and Chatham Arch and all those things are really popular. As CincyTech in that part of town gets built out, people who don't even know what life science is are going to go, oh, I want to go live over there, right?
Yeah.
Or people that don't know what tech is or whatever, just they work downtown, mm-hmm. and they want to live someplace exciting. I see a lot of those people being there and maybe running into other people who do life science, and just another way that kind of elevates Indianapolis and Indiana.
You've just explained the goal of the project very well.
Oh, good. I didn't realize I was doing that, but that works. So we're glad to have you in Indianapolis. You're here with family?
My wife, yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And she likes it here?
She does. We bought an old house in Butler, Tarkington.
Oh, cool.
Close to Butler University.
Yes,
and,
love that area.
We just finished a 5.5 month renovation.
Yeah, a lot of those houses need it over there. Absolutely.
But they're great stock. I mean, it's a solid.
Oh, yeah.
They're all solidly built homes.
They are,
and worth renovating.
Absolutely, I would encourage anybody to do that.
Yeah.
If you're, it's a labor of love sometimes, and then the maintenance. We used to live there. We just moved.
Oh, you did?
About 3 years ago.
Okay.
At 47th in Illinois.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm on Buckingham, so very close to Sunset and Buckingham.
Yeah,
not far at all from where you used to live.
No, not at all. Yeah, we love that neighborhood. My wife grew up right there in Meridian Kessler, and
okay.
You mentioned Indianapolis and how much it's changed. I commend the whole string of mayors and administrations from I want to say probably mid to late 80s forward, and their vision is really being realized. I know my wife grew up there. I grew up in Michigan City, up in Northwest Indiana, and when we got married, we lived in Lafayette, Indiana, because I worked at Lilly there. And we talked about where do we want to go next. We could have come to Indianapolis very easily. I could have transferred to Indianapolis or driven the hour up to Lafayette, but I said, there's just nothing there. We were in our early 20s, so we moved to Chicago. Loved Chicago, lived there for 10 years. But then I had our first child and said, well, we don't really want to raise our kid in a big city, but we love big city stuff.
Yeah.
What about Indianapolis? Came down here, looked around. Well, we were always visiting our parents and stuff. And just to see what happened with downtown and the city in general, culturally, with sports, with everything that's going on, they've done a fantastic job.
They really have.
And it's now a place where, millennials and what do we call in the next generation? Y generation? No.
The next one forget. I've read about it, but I forget what
my
they call
daughter is 14. I think she believes she's a millennial, but I'm like, no, you're the next one, whatever that next one is. Generation Next, that's what we'll call it. Right? Okay. But it's going to be great. And so what we're going to do now, we're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, I'll ask you a few follow-up questions. We'll repeat your call to action.
Okay.
Where do people go to find out more? And then we'll wrap it up from there. The Indiana Biosciences Research Institute is connecting the brightest minds and expertise from industry, academia, and the public sector to tackle diabetes, metabolic disease, and poor nutrition. Their motto is Discovery with Purpose, reflecting their commitment to the translation of scientific discovery into improved outcomes for patients here in Indiana and around the world. More at www.indianabiosciences.org. Welcome back to the show. Still here with Bob Coy of CincyTech, President and CEO. Well, Bob, this has been a great discussion. Before we go, though, just like to ask, I like to get to know people a little better. So sometimes you can tell something about what people care about when you ask about what books they read. So is there a book that you're willing to share that has had an impact on your life?
Well, there is a book that I read in the 80s, and I think I read it twice. It is called The Second Industrial Divide, and it was written by two MIT professors, Michael Piori and Charles Sable, and I got to know Chuck Sable very well after that. Worked with him closely on some projects in Pennsylvania, and what they did is that they showed that new technologies were making, especially in the manufacturing sector, were making it possible for smaller companies and larger companies as well to make customized, large batches of customized products. So, prior to that period of time, mass manufacturing was based on the Fordist, the Ford methodology.
You can have any color you want as long as it's black.
As long as it's black, right?
Yeah.
It can't be customized, right? And so they had found this area in northern Italy where a lot of smaller manufacturers were very specialized, but were collaborating with each other to produce products that were competitive on the global marketplace. And it was the beginning, I think, of the realization that the old style manufacturing and mass manufacturing model was really under threat. And that actually helped to reinforce the path that I have been on ever since, the focus on new technologies and startups and collaborations to remain competitive.
It might be interesting to go back and look through that book again to see how much of what they talked about has come to fruition.
Well, actually, they both won the MacArthur Award for the book, which is the Genius Award. And one of the things that we've learned is that larger manufacturers have learned how to do this now. So they've adapted.
Yeah, I guess I can even imagine if I buy an iPhone, it's almost custom, even though it was mass manufactured. Right. So very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. I'll look it up and I'll put a link for our listeners to go check it out in the show notes. Speaking of links in the show notes, how can people learn more about CincyTech?
Just go to our website, 16tech.com.
That's the number 16tech, right?
The number 16tech.com.
And
notes. You'll learn all about us. We are in the process of revamping it, so I would say in about another month we'll have a new and improved website.
Great.
And then if you're interested in just learning about innovation districts generally, just Google innovation districts, and you'll have pages of examples.
What if somebody is interested in Bob Coy specifically? Can they check you out on LinkedIn?
You can check me out on LinkedIn, yeah. But if you Google me, I want to warn you that there is a minister in Florida who's named Bob Coy, and I am not him.
You're not the minister of Florida.
Right. He got into a bit of trouble.
Maybe that'll be the title of the podcast. Right. Bob Coy, not that guy.
Not that guy, right.
Okay. Well, Bob, this has been fantastic. Thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
You have just experienced the life science effect. If you liked it, be sure and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And more importantly, tell your colleagues, tell your boss, tell your friends. It'll make you look smart, and maybe it'll even get you a raise. Thanks again to our presenting sponsor, BPM Associates. Set your medical innovations in motion. BPM helps life science companies design, manage, and execute their most complex projects. What effect will you cause? Thanks to today's guest and to all of our guests. Who else should I be talking to? Send me an email at steven.vincent@bpm-associates.com. That's all for now. Thanks for listening, and go make something amazing happen.